Extending from Central Asia to the Byzantine Marches in Asia Minor, the Seljuk state under its first three sultans Tural Beg, Alp Arslan, and Melikshah established a highly cohesive, well-administered Sunni state under the nominal authority of the Abbasid caliphs at Baghdad. Overall, the rise of SeljukTurks was a benefit for the Ummah, as they became Muslim and embraced Islam as a religion, and kept the noble Quran and Deen in respect. However, like most Muslims, they were not united and separated into smaller states, sultanates at the time. Turkish tribes from Central Asia become Muslim. Turkish tribes from Central Asia take Islam as a religion and conquer mid-Asian lands. Turkmen, Turkish tribes which immigrated from Central Asia to the west in 11th century founded a militarily strong, culturally developed and religiously tolerant state in Iran's Isfahan city. Known as Seljuk Empire, this state was declared the protector of Islam by Abbasid Caliph who was living in Baghdad, and it ruled over the Holy Lands. As the ancestors of the Western Turks, they blended the cultures and created the hybrid ethos that you can still observe in modern Turkey. Seljuks marches to Byzantine frontiers. The Abbasid Caliph in Baghdad granted Seljuks leader Tural the impressive title of King of the East and West, designating the Seljuk warlord as his temporal deputy. Alp Arslan, successor, expanded significantly upon Tural's holdings by adding Armenia and Georgia, 1064. He had captured eastern fringes of the Byzantine Empire, 1068. Then the war between Seljuks and Byzantines was inevitable. The fact that Sultan Alp Arslan won the Battle of Monzakert cracked the Byzantine defense completely. Before Byzantines found time to get on their feet, Seljuks had already captured eastern and central Anatolia. Battle of Monzakert, 1071. Summary of the Battle of Monzakert, 1071. Seljuk Turks versus Byzantine Empire. Turks rode horses in Central Asian steppes and established big states one after another. As a nomad and warrior tribe, Turks lived together with Mongols for centuries. Although Mongols and Turks established marriage relations and allied together, they also fought against each other as well. With its thousands of kilometers length, Chinese Wall was built in order to stop the ongoing invasions of this highly mobile and effective warriors. Turkish tribes, which immigrated from Central Asia to the west in 11th century, founded a strong empire in Iran's Isfahan city. Known as Great Seljuk Empire, this state was declared as the protector of Islam by Abbasid Caliph who was living in Baghdad, and it ruled over the Holy Lands. Great Seljuk Empire. The Great Seljuk Empire, Persian, Romanized, Al-Seljuk, lit. House of Seljuk, or the Seljuk Empire, was a high medieval Turco-Persian Sunni Muslim empire, originating from the Chinique branch of Oghuz Turks. At the time of its greatest extent, the Seljuk Empire controlled a vast area, stretching from western Anatolia and the Levant in the west to the Hindu Kush in the east, and from Central Asia in the north to the Persian Gulf in the south. The Seljuk Empire was founded in 1037 by Tural (990–1063) and his brother Chagri (989–1060). From their homelands near the Aral Sea, the Seljuks advanced first into Khorasan and then into mainland Persia, before eventually conquering Baghdad and eastern Anatolia. The Seljuks won the Battle of Manzakert in 1071, and then conquered most of the rest of Anatolia, wresting it from the Byzantine Empire. This was one of the impetuses for the First Crusade, 1095–1099. The Seljuk Empire began to decline in the 1140s, and by 1194 had been supplanted by the Khwarezmian Empire. Seljuk gave his name to both the empire and the Seljuk dynasty. The Seljuk Empire united the fractured political landscape of the Eastern Islamic world, and played a key role in the First and Second Crusades. The Seljuks also played an important part in the creation and expansion of multiple art forms during the period in which they had influence. Highly Persianized in culture and language, the Seljuks also played an important role in the development of the Turco-Persian tradition, even exporting Persian culture to Anatolia. The settlement of Turkic tribes in the northwestern peripheral parts of the empire, for the strategic military purpose of fending off invasions from neighboring states, led to the progressive Turkicization of those areas. Where was Transoxania located? Transoxania is an ancient name referring to a region and civilization located in Lower Central Asia roughly corresponding to modern-day eastern Uzbekistan, Tajikistan, southern Kazakhstan and southern Kyrgyzstan. Geographically, it is the region between the rivers Amu Darya to its south and the Sir Darya to its north. Although individual Turkish generals had already gained considerable, and at times decisive, power in Mesopotamia and Egypt during the 10th and 11th centuries, the coming of the Seljuks signaled the first large-scale expansion of the Turkish elements into the Middle East. Descended from a tribal chief named Seljuk, whose homeland lay beyond the Oxus River near the Aral Sea, the Seljuks not only developed a highly effective fighting force but also, through their close contacts with Persian court life in Khorasan and Transoxania, attracted a body of able administrators. One of the administrators, the Persian Nizam al-Mulk, became one of the greatest statesmen of medieval Islam. For 20 years, especially during the rule of Sultan Malik Shah, he was the true custodian of the Seljuk state. In addition to having administrative abilities, he was an accomplished stylist whose book on statecraft, Siyasat-Nama, is a valuable source for the political thought of the time. In it he stresses the responsibilities of the ruler. For example, if a man is killed because a bridge is in disrepair, it is the fault of the ruler, for he should make it his business to apprise himself of the smallest negligences of his underlings. Nizam al-Mulk, furthermore, was a devout and orthodox Muslim, who established a system of madrasas or theological seminaries called Nizamiya after the first element of his name, to provide students with free education in the religious sciences of Islam, as well as in the most advanced scientific and philosophical thought of the time. The famous theologian Al-Ghazali, whose greatest work, The Revival of the Sciences of Religion, was a triumph of Sunni theology taught for a time at the Nizamiya schools at Baghdad and at Nishapur. Nizam al-Mulk was the patron of the poet and astronomer, Omar Khayyam, whose verses, as translated by Edward Fitzgerald in the 19th century, have become well known in the English language. After the death of Malik Shah in 1092, internal conflict among the young heirs led to the fragmentation of the Seljuk central authority into smaller Seljuk states led by various members of the family, and still smaller units led by regional chieftains, no one of whom was able to unite the Muslim world as still another force appeared in the Middle East, the Crusaders. The most imposing of the many fortresses built by the Crusaders, the elegant Crac des Chevaliers in Syria, held out against the Muslims for over a century and a half. The Crusader castle at Sidon in Lebanon was abandoned after the final defeat of the Crusader kingdom of Jerusalem. Overall, Seljuk Turks were main defenders of faith in Central Asia, and conquered most part of Central Asia, but they bore smaller states, sultanates, as they lack unity. They held the noble Quran and Islamic ruling system in high esteem, and established a madrasa system through Central Asia as well. Roots Islamic Homeschool, the History Series.